Hello everyone, this is Mrs. Voigt and we are working on our second lesson of plant processes. We just talked about photosynthesis. Now we are moving on to reproduction of flowering plants. I want to quickly remind you that you can stop or pause the video as many times as you wish. You may also rewind or rewatch the video if needed. Please make sure you are taking notes in Cornell Notes format. Okay, let's begin. I want to remind you of Chapter 13's learning goal, which is to understand that like all living things, plants need nourishment, reproduce, and respond to stimuli. Our learning target for this lesson is I will understand how plants can reproduce sexually and asexually. Flowering plants are the largest and most diverse group of plants. Let's remember that flowers are the structures for sexual reproduction. Fertilization begins when pollen is carried from anthers to stigmas. This is typically done by bees for the more fragrant, brightly colored flowers, and by flies and other insects for the duller flowers that have a less appealing odor. The wind is also another means of fertilization. Once the pollen is relocated to the stigma, a tube grows from each pollen grain through the style to an ovule. So the stigma are those little red dots at the top of the flower, and it would grow through the stigma all the way down through the style, which is the large base part of the flower, to an ovule. Sperm travel down that tube into an ovule. And let's remember that the sperm comes from the pollen grain. Fertilization occurs when sperm fuses with an egg inside the ovule. So the first step for a flower to turn into a fruit is for pollination and fertilization to occur. And remember that happens when the sperm and ovule are fused together. Each ovule in the ovary contains a fertilized egg. The petals and stamens fall away from the plant. The ovary becomes the fruit, like the zucchini shown here, and each ovule becomes a seed. You can see the seeds inside the fruit the person is holding in the picture. As the fruit grows and begins to ripen, the fruit protects the developing seeds. Fruits also help the plants spread seeds. Animals eat the fruits and discard the seeds away from the plants. Each seed contains a tiny plant. If the seed sprouts or begins to grow, a new plant will form. In a fully developed seed, the embryo inside the seed stops growing. To sprout, seeds need a suitable environment which includes water, air, and warm temperatures. For many plants, the ideal temperature is about 80.6 degrees Fahrenheit for germination or sprouting to occur. If conditions are not favorable, seeds can become dormant or inactive. Some seeds can be dormant for long periods of drought, freezing temperatures, etc. It often takes something extreme to break the dormancy, like a cold winter or a forest fire. Some flowering plants can reproduce asexually, involving only one parent, and do not necessarily need flowers. A new plant grows from one of the plant parts, such as the stems or roots. There are three types of asexual reproduction that we are going to talk about. The first is plantlets. Plantlets are tiny plants that grow along the edges of a plant's leaves. The plantlets fall off and grow on their own. So you can see in this picture the tiny buds that are growing along the leaves, and they'll fall off and form their own plants. The second type of asexual reproduction is tubers. Underground stems are tubers and can produce new plants after a dormant season. Potatoes are examples of tubers. You can see that the potatoes grow underground. If you leave a potato out on the counter, it will start to sprout. We will call these eyes of the potatoes, and they are the buds that can grow into new plants. The third type of asexual reproduction is runners. These are above ground stems from which new plants can grow. Buds along the runners take roots and grow into new plants. Offspring, or plants that result from asexual reproduction, are genetically identical to the parent plant, whereas in sexual reproduction, the offspring are genetically related to both parents. That's it for today. Make sure your notes are complete, including questions and summary, and I'll see you tomorrow.